easiest thing in the world is to complain. So when someone says, enough with the complaints, it's time for solutions, you listen. And that's exactly what the Winterland Impact Festival is all about, spotlighting urgent issues and rallying around solutions. Set under that beautiful big sky of Montana, this weekend, packed with filmmakers, artists, and thought leaders, challenged audiences and attendees to move beyond talk and take action towards the future we all know we need. What follows are interviews with the change makers and storytellers who inspired us this weekend. Enjoy, and we'll see you down the road.
Okay, Anderson, thank you for being on Roadcast. You are the mastermind behind Winterland, so thank you for all of it, but thanks for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
And thank you for coming and doing these interviews with the people that are here.
It's been a blast. We have some unbelievable stories from many of the filmmakers and other people, so we love to do it. Super good. I definitely want to orient people to the festival as a whole, and I think we'll get into that. Okay. But as the festival creator, I feel like a theme that I've seen, I guess I'll call it kismet, or just you have a natural way of connecting people. And I don't want to say it's chance, but it's almost a little bit of chance, And so, I don't know, I'm curious of how you think about those little serendipitous moments, because it feels like you've woven together something super special and magical, but seems like you followed a really interesting path.
Yeah, recently somebody wrote something on LinkedIn and said she is a master weaver.
Oh, there you go.
People. And I never thought about that, but I do love, and I've done this in my friendships and everything else.
Yeah.
When I see somebody I think that would like that person,
yeah.
or I see a connection or a thread that can be pulled more with another engagement, or how that person could help that person, usually is how it is. And I have a pretty global network.
Yeah.
So, so I do love to, I like the curation of everything from those round tables at the Solutionist Summit. That was very thoughtful. We have to have 7 people. There could have been 30 at each table.
Yes.
But I really try to be thoughtful around what impact could happen, and what's more likely to have impact if I had picked this person and this person. And I think it worked out well. And so I'm not sure. I think it's just I love people.
Yeah.
And so I meet a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it
definitely comes across.
Like to weave them.
It's I think, but what I love about that is, it could just simply be this person. I think this person will enjoy this person. It's not even hey, something could come out of it. It's there is this, and I think that way of life, I don't know, it just is so beautiful and fun and interesting, and I appreciate it, just seeing those connections. And I think of the same way. It's a unique gift, and also it's just cool for people to be connected with other like minds. I think that's such a huge part of growing yourself and growing your network. And as someone that's experienced the roundtables and festivals, it is you feel like you're curated, almost like there is this invisible kind of weaving mastermind behind it. So amazing job. I love it.
Thank you.
So let's just start with the genesis. Where did, because Winterland is a variety of things. It's not just one festival, the Impact Festival that we're at today.
Yeah.
What was the genesis of Winterland?
My career has been as a producer. Okay. So I in the commercial world, and then the documentary world. But I have a background as a producer. So through that I had a network, and through that I had some, I knew how to produce something. So and then I haven't gone to a lot of festivals, and having grown up here, but lived in both coasts and done my work mostly on both coasts, I thought if I ever went back to Montana, I would want to do kind of like a South by Southwest.
Yeah.
And then when I did move back here, one of the first statistics that I got when I was, information was coming into my, into my inbox or into my orbit, I saw that that Glacier National Park, the glaciers there were melting at almost 2 times the rate of any other cryosphere in the
Sheesh.
world. And I found that so shocking. So, and I knew there'd been a lot of glacial recession and everything. So that was one of those things where, look, I've been an environmentalist my whole life. I follow climate. I follow what's going on. But that one really hit home. And the festival idea, I started to draw a lot more purpose.
Okay.
So one is whatever keeps you up at night is what you should really be. If something keeps you up at night consistently, you should look at that and address that. And then 2, I'm back where I was raised, and this was my playground, Glacier National Park and Big Mountain. Which
So this is
right
where,
there.
like, this is
I grew up
as
in
a
a
child.
tiny town called Libby, but we would come here skiing.
Yeah.
We would come here all the time, and we lived in Big Fork in the summers. So the whole Flathead Valley and Lake County, this has all been my playground, and we were very outdoorsy. And my father always took us out camping and climbing, hiking, and all that. So anyway, so outdoors and conservation and preservation and environmental action has always been important to me, even before. Like, my grandmother was the first upcycler, recycler I met. She talked about the environment. She talked about the ozone layer when we were little kids, and her first action was she stopped using hairspray, and she worked in fashion.
Amazing.
And this was, the 70s, and she stopped using hairspray because she said this is bad for the ozone, and that stuck with me. And I thought, you can take an action. So anyway, the festival then evolved into, so I thought, okay, it's going to be purpose-fueled. I'll leverage my film background and get those people in, and then I will work to find those leaders out there who are subject matter experts, and then anyway, just start to curate the whole thing, and it was really fun because there's a lot of people out there doing wonderful, fantastic work. And then just last piece is because I read a lot of my day is reading, and then a lot of it is writing, and the reading and what gets filtered into my comms, into my orbit, my emails is the solutions. So then I put the solutions piece into, so I kind of added to the bucket of what is Winterland. Right? So it's all those things, but then I thought, okay, we need optimism, and there is optimism, so I threw solutions in there, and that's why I did the summit.
I think it's so critical. I think it's the solutionist mindset, at least to me, it seems like it's a big piece that's missing, and I think it's coming to light. Yesterday we had a chance to interview Ivan McDonald, who did the film Bring Them Home, and he has a variety of other projects that are looking at kind of the atrocities that have happened to the Native American people. Specifically, I think it's the Blackfeet tribe. And at the end of the talk, he was just like, I'm so optimistic about the future. And I'm just like, and you're like, he's investigating mass graves from boarding schools. And I mean, but yet there's this tone of, I think there's something brighter coming. And I think that is a missing piece, the solutionist, because people get bombarded with, hey, the sky is falling. And you kind of get paralyzed in front of a screen. And so it does feel important to have that,
It's true. I mean, you can look at the gloom and doom all day, and like I was doing, lying awake at night feeling anxious, and then you can think about, I'm an optimistic person anyway. So if you're optimistic and you understand solutions, and you understand even more so that every small act collectively is meaningful, can bend the arc. We have to get more people involved. I call it a movement, and it is, and there are movements all over the world, but what people really have to understand is, I get asked a lot, how do you think you're going to change? How do you composting? They'll say something like that, and truly, we heard a talk on that yesterday.
Oh man!
I mean, it's these things move the needle. They change things. Collective action. So when you start in communities, and you bring optimism, and now there's all kinds of there were words I was told not to use, like hope and optimism, because that's not science. Well, now there are, and there's actually, Harvard has I don't know if it's a weekly or whatever newsletter where they have studied the science of hope, And there, when you're hopeful, you'll do more. Of course, I mean, everyone probably
Amazing.
knows that, but
No, but
it's
yeah,
true.
it's science
And
now. Yeah.
it's actually, yeah. So I really believe that that there is hope for the future.
Yeah.
And even with the gloom and doom, to show you, I think we have to see these catastrophic events that we don't see around the world, right? So we have to see what's going on. I think if we don't, when we look around here, and that's why it's hard to bring people into this conversation, because if you look around here, our ecosystems look absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, they look stunning. Yeah.
They look stunning, but we're losing our groundwater. Our aquifers are lower than they've ever been, and we've had drought, and we've had all kinds of other ecosystem serious, maybe not collapses, but nearly, with variety of species and everything. So anyway, but even with that, so you have to see it first, you have to recognize it, and then you have to really understand that your action matters.
Yeah, yes, I absolutely agree. And I think, one of the things that struck me last night was we watched Common Ground, which was on industrial ag and regenerative farming. And I think these topics have been around for a while. You think back to the beginning of the organic movement and people like Wendell Berry and other farmers, and the stories have been told, but it seems like it's it was at a tipping point where it's like, this is in the pop culture stream now, and you have movie stars and you have really great storytellers and documentary filmmakers telling the story that it's gonna create change around regenerative agriculture. You can just see it. So I think it's interesting of yes, sometimes it takes a long time, but to me it was almost like a moment does it still have to be adopted in major ways? Yes, but that incremental change, you can actually see it over time to go oh, this is a really well done film that is really tight, aimed at policy, big names, and it will create change, that starts small. So
absolutely, yeah. And when you start to see, and what just because you brought up, policy, and you see some of there were in that film, you saw lifelong conservatives and conservative farmers and conservatives in policy and the legislature and everything, who were saying, wait, we're starting to get it. And I think when a farmer can tell a policymaker, you're getting this wrong, that was powerful, because it's not a climate activist in there saying something, it's someone suffering who is, look, climate isn't political, weather doesn't care what party we're in, but it's become that, right? So, and policy is so important, but I do think that when you start to pull in conservatives that say, I'm in, and then I think it takes, there's that funny YouTube video, the weirdo dancing by himself at the festival.
Oh yes, and then the tipping point.
The tipping point is the third person, right? And then everybody goes, and that's kind of that's kind of what I see, and then you get this groundswell, and I see that, and again, back to optimism, I'm seeing that. It's hard to see here right now, but it is happening.
Yeah,
it's happening.
Absolutely.
But we have to see drought. We have to see the lake level go down for people to say, yeah, it hasn't rained in a long time, so.
Raise a question, yeah. I want to get back to the festival itself, because it's a convergence of film, at a really cool level, a lot of amazing films. It's a film festival. Then you have music, you have wellness, you have talks around not just climate, but conservationism and environmental work. What was kind of your thinking? I know you've talked about it being a new type of festival. What were you hoping in bringing these pieces together? What were you seeing?
Well, they're all interconnected, and all of them are storytelling. So the Indigenous piece was important for me too.
Yes.
So I had written that land acknowledgement that Bex read, because we're, as she said, and as I have learned and seen when I go to festivals where they give a land acknowledgement, and sometimes it feels like box checking, right?
Yeah,
because
it just feels like, all right.
That. And so I actually asked Natosi Fish when I was going to give a land acknowledgement last time. I'm going off the rails slightly, but I just tie it back. I said, I've been to a lot of festivals. I see these land acknowledgements. What do you want to
Indigenous
do? People think of these land acknowledgements?
I love that question.
And he said, no one's asked us that we just wrote a paper on a national paper. All the tribes got together, and he goes, "I'm going to send you the paper." So he said, "To be honest, we don't love it." You know, and I just had a feeling that they didn't, because it does feel it
trite.
feels a little hollow.
It just feels like we're checking a box. We know we should do it,
and then they just move on right away. And so the indigenous piece is important always, because they were the original conservationists, preservationists, upcyclers, recyclers, use everything, and tended the land better than anybody has ever since. And now there's this big movement for all these leaders, and including, you know, up to the highest levels of government, wanting to bring in, you know, indigenous wisdom, and they're calling it traditional ecological knowledge, and hey, teach us your ways. And it's not just mildly ironic, it's tragically ironic. You know, it's like, and that's what Beck said yesterday, is she added the word tragically. So I think that having that acknowledged in the room when we're in there talking about solutions, it's like, but we couldn't do that without these, you know, without these other voices here. So the idea, though, to have all the buckets was that, one, just how many ways can you tell a story? So let's hear the youth story. Let's hear the indigenous story. Let's hear the artist story, the innovator story, the activist story, the climate scientist story. And so it was a way to get the most storytelling, just to really aggregate a lot of information and perspectives, and in a creative, fun way. You have to make it fun. So, you know, so I feel like we've done that. I mean, we're not, it's still evolving. This is the first one. I'm happy with it. But I just think, like, if you take a model, and when I say next generation, I mean that because we are really, right now, we're pulling youth in, like we did in the summit, into these conversations. That's the next generation. The work I'm doing, when I think about it, I'll never see the results, you know, in my I'm hoping that generations, something that I did, will be out in the world.
And it seems like, I mean, we were talking to Tom, one of the presenters, Tom, and him just talking about the need for community in the younger generations, that you have, we're connected digitally, but there is that lack of, like, connection physically, and that he's facilitating retreats. And it does seem like having a place where you're getting these stories in a variety of different forms and able to have a good time and also meet like-minded people, it's going to be more and more critical, because we're craving the real relationship, the real experience, you know, in all of its kind of forms and feelings. So it seems like
absolutely. And the pandemic it made it, you know, just exacerbated that. And everybody's sort of living in silos, and even us doing work in silos need to get together and share our work. But I do think, like you said, the connection with people, the meeting, I think people love to meet people, and, like, you know, I think networking, but also, like, friend making. You know, I love watching people that have come here that haven't ever met each other, that are like, hey, let me get your number, let's talk later. And that's the kind of stuff I absolutely love. So I do think the getting together thing has to stay around, and all that, everything that became, you know, Zoom conferences and no more events, and it just it isn't really healthy. And so
I do want to touch on that a little bit, just because I know you wanted to launch this pre-pandemic, and then the pandemic just, like, crushed everything. But also just moving back to almost like an indigenous mindset that you'd kind of called out. One, I love that you went back to the tribes and were like, do you like this? And what do you want to do? I mean, it opened with a long prayer, a long song, and then kind of a different take on it. And it wasn't just like a check the box. I mean, the first night was like, I think it was all films about bison, which I'm like, you know, why would I care about bison? Why do I? And I even to see the image with Winterland now, I understand it more. So I would just say it's not even an undercurrent. I think, you know, highlighting indigenous stories has been really crucial and key, and it's come through and been beautiful to see. You know, I mean, it is a huge theme of the conference. Would you say that that's kind of the framework of an indigenous, like, storyteller's, like, mindset? Is that keystone to the festival, or did that just come across this year, or is it?
No, I've been working. So I grew up, you know, in the summers in Polson. That's a reservation. I grew up going to powwows starting at age 5 or 6. I saw that culture my entire life, but at the same time, there was a lot of poison dripped in my ear very young, like, oh, look at them, they're living off the land, and they're living off the government or whatever. And it's all this pejorative nonsense, right?
Yeah.
And when you're a child, you're listening to that. And so I have had, so then I would go to the powwows, and I had this cognitive dissonance with what was being said in this ear, and then seeing this beautiful culture, but then there's a reservation to keep them, in that space. And then when I was 14, I read a book called Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee.
Oh, yeah.
Really, really comprehensive, the most comprehensive academic book written about the time of first contact. And that book turned me into an activist. So for Native American issues. And then I'll skip the whole middle, but I've read it 4 times since. But when I came back here, I knew I really wanted to work, with the tribes, bring indigenous knowledge and stories into any work that I do, so that those stories not for me, but can be told.
Yeah, it comes across for sure.
Yeah. So that was important to me, and I always learn so much when I talk to any indigenous person or elder. And then of course I have another production company that tells indigenous stories with my partner Larry Bear.
Yeah, what's the name of that?
That's called Talking Bear Entertainment.
Okay, cool.
And we have five scripts right now. And one TV show that we're
amazing.
And
are they scripts are they documentaries, or are they like
no, they're films
feature
based
films?
on they're features. They're features, but based on historical events.
Yeah. That's crazy. When you think about the future of Project Winterland, I mean, it's so fun to kind of be at just the rock, not the rock bottom, but like the base, the entry point, of like people talk about those first early years. Maybe talk a little bit about what it's taken to get to this point, and then what are your hopes, for the next 5-10 years?
I'm like, I go up and down. I'm because this has really depleted my resources, my health.
You've been grinding on it, yes.
And my friends and family worry about me. They're like, "This is all you do. You have to have a life," and it's true. I have missed my family. I've missed my friends, and but I'm driven to this. I can't not do this.
Yeah.
So yes, in my tired, when I lie down, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is such hard work. Climate work is hard.
Yeah.
And there have been headwinds, and serious headwinds that would stop someone that wasn't maybe as resolved as I am, because I had serious headwinds. And then there'd be this incredible tailwind. Or like a conversation that I have with someone that just says, you have to keep going. What you're doing is so important, and we need, and I'm not the only one. There's thousands, millions, there's tens of thousands of people doing what I'm doing. I'm doing it mildly, I'm doing it a little differently, at least here in Montana. So the future, I see it as continuing with a festival every year, so the next one will be March of 26. So it won't be exactly this time next year. It'll be in March of 26. We're going to try that. That actually was supposed to be in March. That's why it was called Winterland. So that will happen. And then I'm going to continue with these summits, but in the form of something called Eco Sprints, which is
nice.
We talked about that. Anthony Randall and Planet Home have been doing these Eco Sprints, and we're working together on the next one, which will be in November.
Oh wow!
I think November. Yeah, we were going to do it at this festival, but that was just too much. And then there's a project that we're doing with MIT, with Anthony Randall and Dr. Daniel Donaldson at MIT, around building this simulator, and I won't get into that now, but it's around something they've already made called En-ROADS, and it's a real-time simulator. Essentially you can input, it has these inputs you can put into it. If we have 30% less ICE, internal combustion cars on the road, and we do this thing, what happens? And it just goes real time, shows you exactly how the needle moves in those places. Really cool, but it's only global. So it's one of the most useful. It's used in corporations, institutions, in government and everything. So it's more for that. So I actually proposed that they do one for specifically this bioregion or these community that has different challenges than global, and they actually said they would do it
here in Montana.
Yeah, with us at Winterland.
Amazing.
So it's MIT, and then Anthony Randall, who's this incredible friend of mine and big thinker and founder of Planet Home. And that's our next
adventure. So that's November.
Yes, I'm saying November. I said October, so now I moved it to November.
That's good.
It will happen when
I don't doubt you. That's for one. What you've been able to pull off in a short amount of time is stunning.
Thank you.
You're still alive. I mean, I don't know if you're just you live off coffee, something. But
I have a pretty. I don't know. I'm resilient, and I think that we talk about resilience a lot. We talk about regeneration. I regenerate really quickly. I've always been resilient, and I do when I'm struggling. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get out of this. And then all of a sudden the next day, what
are the things you do? I'm curious about that. Like when you talk about you're able to regenerate, is it just kind of naturally you kind of have a disposition, or are there some practices or things that like what fills you back up to go like, all right, I'm going to try and connect this thousands of people for good?
I do have a natural disposition to be resilient. I do. But I do have practices as well. I had to add some mental wellness stuff to my routine because I was, seriously sleep deprived for the past 2 years, never sleeping. I try to go to bed and I would think of 3 more things and then just get up and start writing or working. So, very little sleep, and I've also been able to survive in my life with very little. I have kids. I mean, I raise kids. You don't sleep when you have kids either, but
it is true. That kind of cracks over. Like you're like sleep means less post kids. Where you're like,
does. You realize you can survive on less, and they won't let you anyway. So, so there's that. I think I have just some sort of I don't know, it's a mind frame. It's a physicality, whatever it is. My constitution allows me to get by with less sleep. I don't prefer that. I'd love to be more healthy. I understand sleep is so important, but I have a couple practices. So I live on Flathead Lake, so
very cool.
And I live on this kind of it's like a solid granite bluff, and that granite, actually several people who've come there, I felt it when I first moved there. A lot of people come in there and they're like, what is this energy I'm feeling here? There is a strong energy. So I do a lot of, and I feel it, and it's healing. So I do a lot of grounding. So I'll go out on the bluff, and I'll take my shoes off, or I'll lay flat on the very end of the cliff,
Crazy.
And then I'll just lay there and I'll just breathe. And I also and I do feel better when I do that. And then I cold plunge as well. And then my last thing that I have, there is a company. This isn't meant to be a plug. There's a few companies that do it. There's something called Love Tuner, and now there's this. It's like some people call it anxiety whistle, but they have figured out this sonic
like frequency,
wavelength, the frequency.
Yeah.
I think it's like 530. I'm wrong. I'm going to say 532. I think that's wrong. But anyway, whatever it is, they've figured it out. And when you kind of blow, it's like a little thing that you can wear around your neck and pull it out, and when you breathe, I box breathe through that.
Oh yeah.
And that sonic frequency has something that it does to your nervous system. So those are my 3 main practices when I really need to get back to like less anxious and nervous about all the things I'm doing.
That's cool though. Yeah. I mean, reconnecting with the natural world, or just connecting to. I mean, Flathead Lake is amazing, and
yeah, I feel lucky.
That is a striking thing about the festival, is just like the landscape itself. And I don't know, just this weekend, the sky, I mean, everything has just been crystal clear. I mean, it's just been like,
it could be anything this time of year.
Yeah, I mean, it could be just. I mean, it dumped rain a couple days ago, right before, and hailed. So, no, I love that.
Brilliant. Yeah, I feel blessed about that for sure.
Was there anything about this first year that I know you can't pick favorites even with your kids, but you're like, oh, I was so excited. This film or this project or a couple of them that you were excited to see?
I was asked that before, and I really love every speaker we've had. I met this Climate Karen when I met Josh and Aaron. that I can't remember how that exactly happened, through LinkedIn or something, and it's so different because I really, what they're focusing on is humor and positivity, and that just struck me as the missing piece that we really needed, because we can talk about it all you want. They literally did something. They're like, and it's so groundbreaking what they're doing, and they come from this, incredible corporate background.
Yeah.
Really
What are they
successful.
doing? What's the...
So Climate Caring.
Yeah.
So they have created. They are partnering. Okay, I hope I say this right. It's a subscription-based service, so all of us can pay whatever, $15 a month, a year, whatever you choose, and then they partner with carbon reduction organizations, and then they give the carbon credits. They're the beneficiary of what they're giving, feeding through Climate Caring, and so it's like crowdfunding, drawing carbon down.
Interesting.
And then using, and they're both so funny. Have you talked to them much?
I haven't talked to him yet.
Oh,
yeah.
you have
we got
to.
it. Let's get
and
it.
I just, Josh just taught. He gave his Ignite talk, and he's just fantastic. And they're serious and super smart.
Yeah.
But the humor is so fun, and you have to follow them because I die laughing every time they post something.
Well, humor's a huge piece, and it does get left out of it, and it's a quick way for people to tune out, is like, make it super serious, and bang people over the head. But I mean, it's even a strategy. Any startup, like, the first thing you do is you start creating memes around the subject. I mean, that's what takes off. It's just like, the meme world. So smart. It's a smart move. Yeah.
And right now there's a climate meme competition going on.
That's awesome.
In Firebrand that they're leading, which I can't wait to see the films from that.
Yeah. I love that.
So,
that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an amazing experience, and an amazing first year, it seems like. So much has happened. You've been able to pull off so much. So thanks for all that you do. And it's just, I look forward to the next couple of years, see how it moves forward. And
thank you. Well, I'm also, I have to add, I'm so happy that I met you guys so randomly as well. And I'm so grateful you're here doing this and the work that you guys are doing. Yeah. And I mean, I feel like new friends.
Absolutely.
I mean, with everybody, Riff and Roadcast and LSW, and then the crazy chance that they moved to my little town, Bayport,
yes,
which is Casey's little town.
We need to do a little story on Casey. We can't get him in front of the camera, but we're going to do it one of these days.
Oh, that'd be great.
We'll get him going on it. So,
yeah. Phenomenal. But so thank you.
Yeah,
so
it's
much
been
for
lovely to
having
see
me.
how it all worked out. It's just so fun, and we look forward to telling stories about it. And appreciate us letting us be here.
I love that you're here. I can't wait to see what you edit when you're done.
All right, we'll do it.
See it.
I love it.
All right,
thanks
so
Anderson.
much.
All right.